everyone, I'm Cassandra Ballantyne, editor of DPS Magazine. Welcome to today's webinar on Print MIS. The shift to the cloud is popular for software of all types in nearly every industry. In the print world, cloud-based management information systems are increasingly implemented. Cloud-based workflow solutions present ease of access, implementation, and reduced maintenance and operating costs. Estimating, job management, and tracking, invoicing, and reporting are common functions that are being successfully moved to the cloud. One trend driving the demand for cloud-based workflow tools is the need for print providers to be flexible and dynamic. Workflow is essential. Modern print MIS solutions are designed to bring a variety of processes together, from order, job management, inventory management, through to mail processing and shipping and fulfillment. Today, several solutions have evolved to use the cloud and host these systems, either as a full end-to-end or hybrid solution. We plan on addressing all of this today, but first I'd like to introduce our guests and invite each to share a bit about their company and what sets them apart from the competition, specifically discussing products and services offered for the digital print space. Let's start with Trent Foreman, CEO of Alliant. Welcome, Trent.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'll get to the screen.
Ooh, there we go. So, Alliant Software Print Job Manager is what we'll talk about from a cloud-based MIS here in this particular space. It's a simplified MIS looking to, really attract the first step into that cloud-based MIS, provides simplified pricing with some cost management. And, it's also a big step and helps as an add-on to our current e-commerce system. So that's kind of where we play in this space, is we're going to be, that first real initial step in to kind of get you going to be able to look at how to do more increased pricing. And the fact that we're from cloud, and you'll hear this probably throughout the rest with my counterparts, is being able to sit down anywhere and everywhere and provide consistent pricing out to your customers.
Thanks, Trent. Now let's go to Michael Jan, Print Workflow Specialist of Presswise by SmartSoft. Michael.
Hi. Yeah, it's Michael Jan. Like Jan rhymes with moron, that kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, we built Presswise as a cloud-based software as a service print MIS system because we kind of believe that it's the best model for building a long-term partnership with our customers, based on, the mutual respect of each other's businesses. Working in the cloud, we have the power to deploy updates, enhancements organically, with much greater efficiency to our customers. Response times and feature enhancements are shorter. And, it's the whole ability of being able to be nimble and upgrade and upscale our customers' businesses. That's that.
All right, thanks, Michael. Now, last but not least, here's Adam Homsey, founder of InkCloud.
Hey there, great to be here. So the story of InkCloud and the cloud actually go hand in hand. And so InkCloud was built from the ground up from prior experiences. I actually had co-founded a trade printer before InkCloud, and from scratch, not knowing anything about printing. And in that process, 4.5 years, going through the trenches, bleeding, feeling pain, you learn how to solve problems. We were specifically a gang run printer, which brings additional challenges. And so anyways, taking that knowledge, I decided to start InkCloud and really apply that sort of gang run philosophy to all print providers, because a lot of that's very useful, especially from an efficiency perspective. Agility is incredibly important today for print providers. And the last bit that we really find important is the stickiness factor. So the ability for the print provider to add additional value and really keep that client connected beyond just, here, I can print a business card or a brochure.
All right, thanks. All right, thanks for joining us today. And first, I'd like to address, let's get into the conversation. The first thing we'd like to talk about is the role of the cloud and when it comes to the print MIS. So Adam, let's start with you. Can you comment on the role of the cloud today?
Sure. So in general, you're looking at the main reasons for the cloud usage is going to be high availability. Oftentimes, the availability factor is much higher than if you're hosting on-premise for a variety of reasons. Next is cost efficiency. It's just, you're using data centers that scalability is incredible, so your cost goes down. And then just the ability to leverage infrastructure that already exists, right? So platforms like ours and other MIS systems are leveraging tools that have already been built and solved by giants in the industry. And we're taking those tools and those services and applying them to problems that print providers are facing.
All right. All right, so now that we know the role of the cloud, let's talk about demand. Trent, in your opinion, what is the number one reason for print providers looking for cloud-based solutions?
They're looking for ease of use. They want to be able to work on that anywhere. In the traditional sense, where you had the server on site, you had one or two people that's what they did, and you had to be inside the print shop to be able to handle it. And then nowadays, you need to be anywhere to be able to sell. I mean, one of the things that we always talk about, from a print job manager perspective, which also holds true for my counterparts here, is that we want to be able to go anywhere, sit down, produce an estimate. So I don't want to have my sales rep go out to, or the sales rep in the print shop go out to that customer. You have to, the traditional game where you have to find out what they want, what do they need, whatever. You come back in, you give it to an estimator, and you let them go through it. You take that, quote back out there. And it is much nice and easier if you can sit there with your phone or your tablet or your MacBook, and you can put all of that in, because you can access this information, from anywhere, and be able to lay it all out. And especially in today's world, where now we're all doing a lot of this work from home. So being able to have access to that information and continue to run your business is a big key factor in being able to look at that cloud and move yourself over. And it goes along with just exactly what Adam said, talking about the costs and not having to host all of that. And well, now nobody's at the office who's taking care of those servers. Oh, the server goes down. So you get that little bit of extra, embedded security and uptime that you have as well.
All right, that makes sense. And so we know the benefits and we know what the cloud will do for us, but there are people that are hesitant to go to the cloud. And so, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and concerns, and maybe talk about maybe why those shouldn't be big concerns these days?
Yeah, I read that as you were, when you gave me the notes saying, well, here I'm supposed to be talking about why you wouldn't do it. Yeah, right. Well, honestly, there are systems, of course, that you can buy and install and have on your site. But let's think about the issues that you still have to deal with. Whenever you're doing a quote, you need things like, oh, well, what's the shipping going to be? So I need to connect to some API that's out in the cloud anyway, even if it's in plant or outside in the cloud. I still need to say, okay, I know how much this is going to weigh when I'm done printing 500 8.5 by 11s on 130-pound stock, and I'm going to ship it from here to there. I need to know how much it's going to cost. I also need to have a connection to credit card processing. Again, do you want to do that inside your plant? Can you do that outside using a third party? In our particular case, we offer mail jobs, so there's got to be AVS, or address verification. So I've got to make sure that's right. Obviously, we don't want to ship something, or certainly don't want to mail something to somewhere that's a bad address. And all these things, we're already, even if we're in plant, we're connected to the cloud anyway. So I guess it's tough for me to make an argument saying, hey, there's a benefit to have it inside your plant.
Yeah.
Oops, your lights went out.
Yeah, my light.
Oh no. Well, the makeup looks perfect.
Now I'm just shadowed out, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I can't get it to turn back on, so well.
It's okay.
So thanks for that. Now we're going to talk about the hybrid approach. So maybe people that don't want to go fully to the cloud might have some options there. So Adam, let's get back to you. In your opinion, is it recommended or possible for print providers to utilize the cloud in some form of their MIS functions, or should it be an all or nothing approach?
If you can do all, that would be great, right? But that's oftentimes not the case. And so InCloud was built to handle both on-premise functionality, and you could do all, or you could do some parts of your workflow on-premise. And some of the reasons you might want to do that would be if you have some sort of application that requires extremely low latency. Another would be high bandwidth operations. And the third one might be regulatory issues. There might be reasons why you have to have stuff on-prem and it cannot be somewhere else. And so, the way our system is built, it's flexible enough to deal with that. And then I also add that much of our tools actually run on premise where needed. So for example, our ship tools that need to talk to hardware in your plant to get weight, things like that are still on premise, but talking back to our data center.
Okay. I got my light back. Does anybody want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit there because kind of in the same boat. So we for both or a couple of our products, we use a couple of tools. One is the AWI, the Automated Workflow Integrator, and T-Bot from our graphic design piece that do a lot of what you're talking about. It works there on your desktop, but it can go grab that information from the cloud and be able to bring that job and then move it into a hot folder, move that file around where needed. So I think there's a benefit of both. Obviously, from the regulatory piece, there's a lot of places, healthcare, government, where you got to close that loop and you got to have it in there. So from that sense, yes, but I think staying, being able to move, someone being worried about moving in the cloud, I'd have to ask the question of, kind of where are you coming from? Are there some security related issues? Or there's some, just, oh, it's not going to work that well. It's not going to be that fast. It's not going to be that streamlined. And I think in today's world, I mean, that's what we're optimizing for, is to be able to touch something from anywhere.
Right. And Michael, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I know that Trent mentioned scalability, and that's a real big issue for our customers. Sometimes they land a big whale, and all of a sudden a whole bunch of work comes in, and it's complicated or it's large. And if you have to go out and buy a bunch of servers and set them up with, it's a nightmare. It can become a nightmare very quick. And also the issue of having this information at your fingertips is a big issue. All this stuff, when it's in the cloud, you can get on with your phone and take a look. If you're a sales guy and see that there's a problem with an order, you can get alerts. You can deal with it directly on like a tablet or a phone.
Okay, great. All right. So the past year has been very difficult for many, obviously.
I had hair.
Just a little bit.
I've got some grace. But I think that cloud-based functions are very in demand because of COVID-19 and working remotely and pushing everybody kind of that way. I know we talked about demand earlier, but can you elaborate on what the impact has on COVID-19 in terms of demand for the cloud? And Trent, let's send that one to you.
I was going to say, you tell us where to start. I think we're probably all going to say around the same thing. And it's, we've run into this situation, and we had customers really reevaluating, and I don't want to go too much into the e-commerce side, because I think all three of us could say that was a huge catalyst for last year. People realizing that, I need to be able to sell beyond my brick and mortar. Well, at the same time, it was also, okay, we're going to look at a new style of MIS system. We may have been doing things, from the old original. Well, somebody had to be on site to man the on-site server system and be able to do estimates. We can't do any estimates or put in any orders because it's there at the shop and we can't go to it. Well, moving over into the cloud, it's allowed companies to continue to work, even though, I mean, obviously you got to have your press operators and your print people there because you got to be able to produce it. But if you wanted to keep your estimators safe or your salespeople safe, they can do exactly what we're all doing right now. They could be at home and still being able to work and be able to put in those jobs. And you've got your essential guys, your essential crew there at the shop, working whether it's wide format apparel, t-shirts, whatever you need. That can still, you can have them there, let them be safe, let them be away from everybody else, and have everybody else working from home, and you can still access again. It's all back to accessing that data of information.
Right. Okay. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
I'd like to just quickly say a couple of our customers are universities, and they weren't allowed in their building. Okay, they were completely shut out, and thank goodness they had the ability to at least put work in to. Because they have storefronts set up. And a lot of the stuff was, not just print. I mean, there's sometimes somebody saying, I need a website, I need an ebook, I need it, So they're providing pre-press and digital services. And because they had this system online and in the cloud, they could continue doing business.
Adam, do you have anything to add there?
I mean, pretty much the same. What you're seeing are a lot of print providers who had gone to skeleton crews and, have just the bare essentials needed to run the machines and things like that. And everybody else is at home. And you could even have someone who has a scare who might have been working in the office. They're not sure if they're should be there or not, but going home and working from there makes no difference at all on a cloud-based system.
And let's add on that and talk about what features were most in demand when it came to the cloud and why they were popular. Were there any things that kind of stood out about maybe features that people were asking for?
Storefront.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Can I set up a website where our customer doesn't have to go anywhere and just order what they need?
Yeah.
Yep. Very common.
I mean, that's I think that was a lot of the big catalyst. I mean, obviously ease of use. I mean, shipping, payment, your cost. I mean, really knowing where your cost. I mean, we're talking MIS, but if you're talking the past year, I need to sell beyond the brick and mortar is probably the catalyst for everything that came through with all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And so were a lot of your clients already using that type of the cloud system, or were there a bunch of people that wanted to move to the cloud?
We've seen a lot who were already on board that have we're getting heavy demand for what we call our microsite system. So they're like storefronts that maybe a print provider can use, but they're lightweight storefronts that the provider can offer to their clients. And oftentimes you see that used when they're working with a large brand who wants to deploy an internal portal, for example, for their, a gift shop or maybe franchise material. That has just gone through the roof. I mean, usage, demand, deployments, the number of Fortune 500 companies who have jumped on through our, through the print providers on our platform has been the greatest number we've seen ever. So I don't know how much of that is COVID related, but I'm sure it plays a part.
I'd agree. I mean, and Michael, Michael and the Alliant Presswise group have worked really well together over the last couple of years, and that I think one of the things we talk about on that, the integration between the two. So there's a kind of both systems we've always played together very well, and I think collectively that's a lot of what we've seen is those B2B, you call Adam, you guys have the micro, we kind of go with the B2B specific customer because of that. Oh, well, everybody's shut down, I don't have that one single place, we got to ship to, now we're shipping to 150 locations as opposed to 15 because everybody's moved around, but I can still make those orders and see what that information is, and it all at least flow into the background so that we've had a couple, especially in our international group, we've had situations where you're allowed to come into the shop, but you're only allowed to come in for, as opposed to what would be normally a couple of 8, running 3 shifts a day, we're down to, well, we can get in the shop for 6 hours because that's from the local regulations when you can be in and out. So trying to make as much as you can, looking at your scheduling, looking at, what jobs you have in, I hate to say it this way, but prioritize those jobs to, which ones can you run in that time frame has been a big factor.
And if you think about, I think one of the questions that were asked by, somebody sending in a question was like, how do you automate certain things like a booklet? If you can incorporate things like auto batch imposition and JDF and send files from the cloud into their plant, I would say at least 30, maybe 35% of our customers have setups with presses, and I'm not specific to the Indigo, but like a digital press where the file, literally the first time the plant even knows that there is a job that was submitted, it's already been printed and sitting at the end of the press. So really, the pressmen aren't even coming in. What's happening is the guys who are doing finishing are just taking those stacks off and putting them in a Duplo slitter, and then going and putting on a tray and letting the shipping guy grab it. And then literally, it's really 2 guys. It's like 2 guys and a dog. The dog's there to keep you away from touching the machine too much.
Well, and even if you go that, but even if you back it up the line, you talk about, you come off the storefront into a process, a graphic processing, software, whether you're, using T-Flow from Alliant or you're using something like PitStop, and all of that piece kind of gets automated, so that now you don't have your designers can be, they're off site and they're making sure stuff comes in. Customers are approving the proof. So you're right. Yeah, Michael, I've had a couple of people talk about that. Yeah, it's if you can get it straight off the end of the printer, whether it be the Indigo, the Ricoh, the Canon, the Konica Minolta, or coming off that press, and you're finishing, which still takes a lot of manual work into it.
Yeah.
That's what's helping a lot of these printers stay afloat.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, so I'm glad you brought that up, because we were about to head off to the questions, and the specific question was, how can you automate imposition from the storefront of folded multi-page brochures?
Yeah, it's all those Gazinta Gazauda moments. I mean, there are so many apps out there. Pitstop, it was mentioned, Switch. We have people who have a storefront dumping into Switch, and then Switch doing some magic and then sending it to Presswise. We also have Presswise customers who have a storefront going into Presswise, and we're sending it like Switch is a printer. So
Okay.
it's all a matter of figuring out what has to happen. And, it's gotten very easy. I mean, I'm 65. Okay. I can do this. So, and I was dropped on my head as a child. Anyway, so the point, though, is that you can automate a lot of things and have these things come out. And, imposition is well known. Everybody knows their press. Everybody knows what sheet they're going to print it on. So it really is to the point where if you have an inline folder and stitcher, you really can automate it, where the first time that job comes in, it just is printed, folded, scored, stapled, and it's sitting at the end of your press. I mean, it's that you can't really do without having some kind of connection to your customer who's going to upload it, to some system in the cloud.
Yeah.
That's the key, is you have to have that customer not have to come in with a thumb drive saying, here's my files.
Yeah.
And I think Trent will agree. There's stuff you can put in front of that, we call mystery meat PDFs, where we can say, no.
Right.
You picked an envelope, but you gave me a poster that's 24 by 36. And you can kind of show them right there. Oh, I grabbed the wrong file, It happens.
So from a customer perspective, if they have questions like this, would you guys kind of help walk them through how they could achieve this type of automation?
That's actually a huge part of our onboarding process for enterprise accounts. And so what we do is we go through a whole discovery process, right? I mean, companies all do things differently. They've been doing them a certain way for a very long time, and you can't just abruptly pull them into a workflow, right? So we kind of walk through the whole process. We talk about it. And we introduce these ideas, rules-based automation, workflow automation. When something comes in, if it's a certain paper type or if it's under a certain quantity, maybe it should run on this press. Maybe if it's this quantity or that paper, you're actually outsourcing it. And so that should go into their vendor's dashboard, which we have. We actually have a company that splits into about 4 or 5 different channels, one of which is a provider in Asia. And so we're pushing files, conveying files across to Asia, they produce, and then we're carrying shipment data as they ship overnight international back to the US to different points in the US. So you can't do that without rules-based automation and workflow automation. It's just way too complicated.
And having all that data again back in the cloud, because it's got to be, if you had it, you could, now you're talking about going back in, and are you VPing in, are you logging in, are you getting a secured access to our server there at the site, whereas opposed to here, connectivity becomes to be able to get that information back and forth like it is and see it in real time, just really becomes essential.
Okay. All right. And so my next question, what came through, has to do with security. What can print providers do to alleviate security concerns, especially around recognizing and addressing vulnerabilities in the system? And maybe to add on that, if you have people using their personal devices connecting in, like how can you just make sure that everything's secure?
Well, we ship everyone a tinfoil hat. That's
you said you were going to bring that out.
No, we especially for credit card processing in the cloud, I mean, you legally do not want to hold a credit card on some system that's in your building anyway. And when it gets in the cloud, it's another step that's
Right.
more complicated. So you have to then go through this thing called PCI compliance, which we've done. And, we use authorize.net. And yeah, there's that. Also, passwords that a customer is going to put in to log into their system, that has to be hashed, and we have a customer who works with Microsoft, and they had to, just something like, well, what do you mean you can upload a zip file? It could be an Excel file in there, or it could be, something that, has malware in it. So these are things that you have to deal with at the system level, because, a customer may not even know they just uploaded something that had a problem.
Right.
So, yeah, so, this is sadly, but factually, this is a big thing that we do with our hosting provider. We don't host the actual hardware. Like, we happen to use a company called InnoScale. I don't know. I've heard people using AWS. I mean, there's all sorts of services out there, but they're your partner, and they are a big firewall for yourself.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, go.
No. I was going to elaborate. It all comes down to your company and who you're hosting. And Adam's probably he's probably going to say the same amount of thing. Yeah, it's where are they going? I mean, we're not only worried about, we have 3 main servers, one in Chicago, one in Amsterdam, and one in Singapore, because, one from a network traffic, but also, now you start getting onto not just you talk about SSO. I mean, same thing like you said, we've got a customer that works with an extremely large social media platform that, their customers, there's their storefront, and their customers, they wanted the access and control, not only from the SSO to going, okay, this person's on, but if something happens, that person leaves the company, we need to be able to restrict the access. You start now talking about GDPR with, okay, now you've got a guest on your storefront or into your MIS system that now, oh, well, I want you to remove my data because, that's part of the GDPR piece. California is now, putting in the same type of privacy laws and things like that. So it all goes down to who your subscriber is, who you're working with, who's the company you're working with. I mean, yeah, much like Michael says, we work with, a lot of our files on AWS. So there's that added extra security piece. We've blocked some malware attempts. We've, had to deal in the past, and we have these larger providers, and then of course our corporate security team from the Lumen group that we're a part of across telecommunications, everything like that. We're constantly looking because these people out there, it's like, well, they one piece of malware worked at some point, and then we got a fix for that. Well, now they're always coming up with a different way of trying to get into your system and structure and your data, and it kind of comes down to that's all on us, and we spend lots of time, energy, and effort in making sure that your data can't be stolen.
Now, before Adam jumps in, I just want to say we mentioned a couple acronyms. SSO, a lot of people don't know, single sign-on.
Okay.
Just so the people out there understand why that's important. If you're a university, you don't, and you happen to be doing business with, you're in a department, and, they're going to log into all sorts of different things. They don't want to have to log into Trent's system. They want to log into my system with their own, over and over and over. They want a single sign-on, so you have to support that. And then you mentioned GDPR. That one I didn't know.
GDPR, it's the European version of privacy, European privacy.
Oh,
issues.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and then AWS is Amazon Web Services, or
do you guys want to elaborate on GDPR and how that has affected? Because
no,
I heard a lot about it.
I'll give you my best. Yeah, I don't have to be extremely dangerous.
No one wants to talk about that. No.
Well, I heard so much about it a few years ago, and then I don't think I've heard much about it since.
Fortunately, at least from a print provider perspective, there aren't too many out there that would have massive exposure to sort of like the regulatory issues, operating across borders in a certain fashion. So, that's, a lawyer is going to be better at getting into the details of that. But from what we've seen, most of our, most print providers they're based in their country, and it doesn't apply They're not dealing directly with the EU.
Okay.
Well,
Where
I was gonna
Trent
say,
is, he's international. He's more,
Yeah,
we're completely either U.S., some Canada, have a little bit in Mexico, but mostly, North America. We don't have anything going
well,
on.
California is starting to base a lot of they have the
Right.
new California GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation. I had to re-Google it. I apologize.
gonna say, I knew it.
I
so
know
well.
the acronyms, but
Okay.
we speak
Honesty.
in acronyms. But it's the same thing, and it's the official protection that and like I said, California is coming up, and there's other a lot of the other states are starting to look at this as well, and it's all about it all streams from the big social media giants of, we have your information, we're going to sell, we can sell your information. And, that's, you want to, as a print provider, your information is your gold. You can be able to market new services to your clientele. You want to be able to do that. And so what they've done is they've come in and said, as a customer, I can say, hey, I need you to forget my information because I don't want you to market back to me anymore. And you kind of have to respect that at this particular point. It's like the whole, click stop, text stop to stop receiving these text messages. So you have a lot of that. And, again, if heaven forbid, if you're on your lone server and you have a data breach, or an employee or a customer walks away with a data set, that's a big deal in today's world. And so, security, I think there, I think there are general true concerns about security, but the companies, our three companies that we're working with, I mean, we go to great lengths to make sure. So that's, and I think all of the companies in our space that work in the MIS and the e-commerce space, should be doing what they need to be doing to make sure that your data is safe, even though it is in the cloud.
Yeah,
Right.
I would even argue it's safer in the cloud. If you're hosting on-prem, and a print provider is not going to be as expertise in data protection or security as a software company who the whole basis is the cloud, right? So every time this is brought up, I say, look, sure, there's risk everywhere. There's nobody who can say there's zero risk, but the risk is magnitudes higher if you're holding data yourself, hosting machines yourself. You don't have proper authentication and auditing mechanisms, and just like Michael and Trent have mentioned, single sign-on capability. Things like that are very important, especially the bigger you get as a print provider.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the three of us all have R&D teams. That's their job, is and security related, infrastructure related, that's what they're looking for. They're watching, they're making sure. And so, Cassandra, I thoroughly, you said it, I think, a little earlier. We could have we could redo this whole thing again just based on security.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's a big concern, and it's a big piece that's out there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times it's just the idea of putting information out of your control is scary, but you kind of have to realize that, like you said, the software companies know what they're doing, and maybe as a print service provider, you might not know the ins and outs, or have like the security that you have access to.
It's a bit of an illusion, right? It's sort of like flying and not being in control. People are afraid to fly, but it's actually, it's better to trust your life with the pilot who trained and has done this for 20, 30 years than fly yourself, right? And
like
exact same way.
PCI compliance for credit cards, trust me, it's not, it wasn't an easy process at all. I mean, not at all.
I shiver thinking we're doing the same thing there. But you're right. And there's companies out there, we tend to come from the idea of, PCI compliance, credit card processing. Do we want to do it ourselves, or do we want to trust, the PayPals, the Stripes, the, Card Connect, First Data, Authorize.net? It's what they do. It's what they do. So we take our cues and we take our, a lot of our structure to them and let them do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. When you're actually entering your credit card number in a window inside of Presswise or a storefront, it actually isn't connected to us.
Exactly.
It's going to Authorize.net, but you've got to be able to prove that, and that's there's your code. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cassandra.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just gonna. The last question is kind of a softball question, and it says, "How do we know that a move to the cloud is right for us?" So maybe you guys want to. So how would a print provider know that it should be time for them to consider the cloud if they're not already on it, or to move more processes to the cloud?
I think it's
Does
self-evident, right?
does your back end look like this? Do you have papers everywhere? And are you using an Excel spreadsheet and that's on this? And who's got the work ticket? Where's the work ticket? What job is it? Those are the questions you can ask.
Yeah. Quoting is a big issue. We have a particular feature called favorites, and a lot of our customers, like they'll hire a new CSR, right? And they may or may not have any print background at all. They just a warm body that they threw and say, okay, you're in charge of XYZ account. And now they've got to know things like, oh, when I pick this paper, that I can't just fold it. I got to score it first. And you can set up a favorite where they just say, okay, it's a booklet, and you pick it, and boom, the quote comes up. And they may not even know what all these words mean down here, but they can create a quote. And that's what I'm saying, is that you can then let somebody who lives at home, and is working from home, and suddenly have a certain amount of knowledge that they can work and learn, and then submit and convert things into orders. So, yeah, the big issue is right now, as I said, self-evidence is this COVID thing. I mean,
yeah,
if you can't see the benefit of having all this stuff connected, where I don't have to come into a plant to access, I don't know any other way to convince you.
There's a couple studies out there, and they're talking about just the makeup of the print shop. And I came from a print manufacturer background, sold the printers, ended up going into a print shop and building it out with a friend, and that's how I ended up here at Aland. And we talk about the print knowledge base, and I think, Michael, we even talked about this at Printing United, or I was talking with Joe. What you just said is hitting it on the head. I laugh. My favorite Pixar movie is Ratatouille, and the chef says, anyone can cook, and we're in that point in print where we have to say anyone can price and anyone can produce, and you do need to have that print knowledge of knowing that, okay, I'm printing on a 130-pound blazer satin cover. I need to be able to score it, but I can build that into the front end software. And I love that I did this. I did this with a customer of mine at the print shop. My daughter was, she's 16 now. She was, I think, 12 at the time. And a guy came in that we were going to sell something. And I was kind of making a point to everyone there. It's like, look, here's the iPad. Here are the questions. Ask them the questions. Oh, how many do you need? This. What type of paper? Here are the choices. Oh, I'd like this. Okay, this. And she just went down, asked the questions, and made it very, very simple, so that the same thing, you would do the same thing from a storefront, just push this out to a storefront. But in the back end, it knew, oh, well, it's the size of 4x6. I'm going to print it 9 up. I'm going to use this paper. Okay, great. We got to add score to the Duplo folder later on. This is going to take this long to print. Are we doing it double-sided or not double-sided? It did all of those questions in the back end. All I had to do was ask the simple question of, how many do you want?
Yeah. And where do you want to ship to?
Where do you want to ship to? And return a price. Are you okay with, do you want 500 or 250? What price, this price, great. Boom, push it through, and then let the software do what it's supposed to do.
Yep. It's all about making it easy for the user, whether that user is an end user or it's your internal rep. You know what I mean? And that all was built from being able to represent, in printing, you have so many variables, right? I mean, paper types, color, size, are there add-ons, right? And so to represent that is a monumental task, right? Can you put blue foil on this? Yes, but not if it's UV coated, and not if this, and not if that, and not at this quantity. I mean, it's crazy. So, and all of our systems are going to have these sort of kind of path dependency availability when pricing out, whether it's forward-facing or back-facing.
Prohibited or permitted,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right,
You
so
can't
everybody
fold aluminum.
Well, you probably can. It's just not pretty. It's just it's not pretty.
You can for a price.
Yeah. Exactly.
We had a person say, why don't you support 10-page NCR? And I said, what kind of gorilla would you have to be able to push hard enough on 10 sheets of paper and write? I said, I imagine they make it, but I've never seen it. Anyway.
All right, well, that's all I had. Does anybody have anything else they want to add before we sign off?
Well, if you don't, guys, if you don't mind, I'll jump in and just say, I believe no one, moving to a cloud-based system with MIS, and I think the three of us represent three different good stages of, your starting point, where to kind of step into for more complexity, all the way in. We all also come from, a front end storefront e-commerce section with the ability to have that online graphic design. So, the question you kind of really want to ask, the overall solution is really where you're looking for. And I think you don't need to be scared of the cloud. You need to ask your question of what type of connectivity. Can they play well with others? Do they have the ability to play well with other systems? You talk about imposition. There's really good companies out there that can be able to step into your process. So that total overall solution, and that's I think all three of us, but especially that's where we want to try to play. Where did you get the customer from? Did you get them to your storefront? Did they buy something? And just buying something is the first tip of the iceberg. Really, the MIS is really what comes into play of going, what was your cost? Did you make, the big overall question, did you make money on this job? We all like to make money. We all want 85% margins on everything we do. But, sometimes you got to just, can you squeak out 10-15% of a margin, on this particular job? What's your average job that's coming through, and then push it on down the process. And I think if you can do that with minimal touch points, but also be able to do that from anywhere, so that, hey, I can work on the shop from at home just because, because of COVID, or because I'm off for the day and I just want to work on new pricing engines because that's what I like to do in my off time. That's a big consideration, and I think it's not going to be hard to make the justification to, do I jump to the cloud? I think you're going to find that when you really start talking to any one of us, or any of these companies, you're going to find the justification is actually pretty easy to say, do I jump to the cloud?
I fully agree with what you said, Trent. I think that it's brutal, but if you don't, you're going to be in bad shape. This is just the nature of things. Business is tough out there. The world is competitive. You have to operate lean. And not only that, you have to, again, we strongly believe in this. You have to be sticky. You have to be more than just, I can sell a brochure at this price. So what? So could everybody else, right? You have to have tools that you make available as a print provider to your customers so that they can go and add value, whether it's with an agency or an end user. And that's important. So when you're evaluating, you definitely want to look at that, because everything else should be a given. Should it tell you your job status, where a job is at, or give you a shipping rate, or take a credit card? Of course, that's fundamentals. But you got to go above and beyond that now. You've got to be able to give these extra tools so that you can really be competitive out there.
Right.
Yeah, and we have an API that provides a way to connect to other people's storefronts. I'd say probably 20% of the people we meet say, oh my goodness, we have an opportunity with this client, but we don't have a way to slurp in their orders. So they literally, that was why they turned to us and said, oh, you have a way to do that. I go, yeah, our world is now all XML. It's CXML, XML, and more recently JSON, where data is coming in as an injection and the order just appears. That is, I really believe, that's what has grown our business for sure. And I know it is with Trent.
Well, and Adam, and I'd be, always be curious, because, you start to talk about it in the different space, and that same thing, where the order's coming from, but like in the university space, and you guys, I see, play really well in there. That's all about justification of why I'm here. It's not necessarily, there is an amount of, are we making some money, but it's also, what are we saving? What are we bringing to the table, from that, in that implant space? So, there's a lot of different ways to look at this.
Yeah, automation.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well, it seems like you guys have a lot of insights about the cloud, and I hope everybody got something takeaways from that. So just to note, the recording will be available after to watch on demand, if anybody's joining now that wanted to see the beginning. And that's it. So, there's an article on MIS in the March issue that's just mailing now. And then there's a couple more online, because I got a bunch of good responses on security and COVID. So
We can come back and do that.
Yeah. We're all going to do a GoFundMe to get you a light.
Well, it's here. It just died on me.
Let me get you what my daughters have that when they're doing their
With the
TikTok
circle
videos,
ones,
it's
yeah.
a little circle light. Yeah.
I have one, but it's at home, and I have this
I
nice
saw
little-
what I saw one of our that you can mount it like right above your camera on your
Yeah.
TV, so it's just right there.
Yeah,
I
I'll
usually
definitely-
don't share my screen. I go, I'm 65. I'm not that impressive looking.
All
All
right,
right.
guys. I hope you had fun. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll be in touch. And
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Great being